Have you ever wondered who's behind the push to make the UK a global powerhouse when it comes to music technology? Well, that's exactly what we're exploring in today's episode. My guest is leading the charge as Executive Director of Music Technology UK, the new trade body supporting one of the fastest growing and most exciting corners of the music industry. We talk about the rise of music tech startups, how the UK can stay competitive on the world stage, and what companies from hardware innovators to AI platforms need to thrive right now. Welcome to Beats Learning. Before we dive in, if you're enjoying the show, hit like, subscribe and share it with someone who's curious about the future of music and the tech shaping it. It really helps us grow and keep bringing on brilliant guests like this. But now that's done, it's a pleasure to introduce Matt Cartmell. So, Matt, welcome to Beats Learning. Thank you for coming along.
Good to be here, Ben.
Yeah.
Thanks for inviting me into your lovely den.
I was about to say, so I've actually probably got to apologise for today's session, really. I think it's probably the hottest day of the year so far, and I've dragged you to Clapham into a sealed room. Hopefully the heat doesn't get the better of us.
Yeah, the summer has properly kicked in, but I'm going to try and keep my jacket on through the whole discussion. Let's see how we go.
Don't worry, you're in the same camp. I thought I'd try and keep with the branding, and I've already managed to spill water all down myself, so we're doing incredibly well. So look, I was really looking forward to this conversation today because I actually sat down with Tom Allen a while back, and obviously once again, you know, a wonderful guy, really sort of focused on tech in the music scene, but from his perspective, obviously very focused on an individual company, obviously CTO of Downtown. Whereas yourself, obviously the founder of Music Technology UK, really is trying to be a voice for all tech in the music scene. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your sort of your ideas on how that differentiates. But to start with, to really kick us off, where did the inspiration for MTUK come from?
It's a good question. So I guess if I go back over my long and checkered history, my career, I've done a lot of different things. I've zigzagged quite a bit in my career. So I've done, if I think about it, I've done a lot of PR work. I've done communications and PR work. I've worked at agencies, and I've also set up my own PR agency, and we can talk about that. I've worked as a journalist. I was a music journalist, and that was right back in the early 2000s.
Nice.
And I wrote for a magazine called The Fly, which was a kind of indie music magazine that was very, it was kind of free, and it was handed out at like music venues and that kind of thing. And there was the Barfly in Camden and all these kind of bits. Going way back now, basically. But that was the kind of era.
Everyone will realise that.
Yeah. I don't need to. But so I got really into all that kind of thing. So there's the PR thing, there's the journalism thing. I got into news journalism. So I got really into sort of, local news and that kind of thing, and then did some trade journalism. And then the other thing I did for quite a bit of my career is trade associations. So I worked at a trade association called the PRCA, doing kind of communications work, and I was Deputy Director General there. So I've done lots of different bits and pieces, and actually I feel as though Music Tech UK has kind of brought it all together in a way and combined it. It's like the culmination of everything I've done, because you've got the music thing, which I love.
Yeah, of course.
I'm hugely passionate about music. We've got the trade association thing. We've got the communications thing.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of like that. I think those are the main bits that I've always seemed to have done. That's my sort of triangle of sort of interests that I've got: comms, music, and tech.
So MTUK is a little bit of the Venn diagram right in the middle.
It feels like it is.
Love it.
Yeah, it feels like it is.
Oh, I love it. So what were your goals with it then? And sort of what, obviously, what inspired it, but what's the point of it? Sorry to in such a crude way of putting it, but what is the goal of MTUK?
Yeah, it's good to get down to the basics with it, because we're essentially a trade association. So if you think about organisations like the BPI, UK Music, we're the one that has been set up to represent the music tech sector in the UK. Okay. There hasn't been one until we set one up. And my view is that every industry should have a voice, should have a representative body to give it a voice and fight its corner and deal with the issues that industry needs to deal with to move it forward. So we're one of those, and we're, as I say, we're a year and a half old, so we're fairly new into this. But I guess getting beyond that and thinking about what we're looking to achieve, our kind of overarching aim is actually sort of to drive recognition of the UK as a kind of global leader of music technology. So we've got very lofty aims here, and that's not going to happen overnight, but that's what we're fighting for. And we've got a lot of great members who are helping us in that cause. We've got over 110 members now, right across the board in music technology, from production and performance tools, right through to live music events, ticketing, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. And we can talk about that. But yeah, that's kind of like our overarching aim, is to kind of drive recognition, but then help to drive skills in the industry, bring together a community. So I'd like to think of us as being kind of a hub for an ecosystem,
of course,
bringing all these different people together, different players together. So
that's the term of association, right?
Exactly, I guess it is really. Bringing together startups, scale-ups, big tech companies, but also the record labels, the artists, investors, which is really important for the music tech sector, and bringing all these different kind of factions together in a collaborative kind of way. So that's the dream.
So how do you see that happening then? Obviously, I appreciate you're only 18 months old, as you say. What have you achieved? Have you achieved anything yet? Or not? Once again, not to be so crude about it. What are your actual goals? How do you envisage you helping these people?
Yeah, so one of the key things that we've done since we launched is we've actually kind of partnered with a co-working space in East London called Home, the House of Music Entertainment. So that means we've got a base, basically, which is really good. We've got somewhere that we live, which is a really good achievement, and they're fantastic, the people at Home. So basically, we've got this place that we can use. All our members can use the space to work there together, collaborate, come together and do things together. But also what we do, every Wednesday, we have these Wednesday sessions. Every Wednesday we'll do an event. It could be a kind of community event, networking. It could be a round table for learning. It could be something kind of like a panel discussion. And this kind of forms the focal point of a lot of the work that we do, the decision making, the kind of the plan. So a couple of things that we've done recently there at Home. We've had MTUK, which was a kind of really inspiring event that we did, where we brought together female lead founders of music tech companies to tell their stories, the problems, the pitfalls, the challenges they face, but also the great stories too, to inspire the next generation of female leaders.
Fantastic.
But then yesterday we had a session where we brought in an expert on IP. So and to basically explain to our members how to protect their IP, make sure that they're not going to get their IP stolen, they're protected by copyright and all these other things as well. So it's learning, it's collaboration, it's community, and it's all those things wrapped up together, I guess.
Wonderful. So I'm just going to quickly refer back to something I read on an MTUK article, and coming back to your point on the female side, was that actually you highlighted only 17% of the member companies are led by women. And I don't want to jump too much into DEI too quickly, but what is MTUK doing to sort of empower women there? And are they, what steps are you taking to try and help the journey?
Yeah, exactly. So when we were launched a year and a half ago, ensuring improvements in diversity and inclusion within music technology was definitely one of the kind of focal points, and it's there on our website as one of the core principles amongst a bunch of other ones that we're focusing on. So that's something we're driving forward. Our members have expressed the fact that that's something that's really important to them. And we're doing a bunch of things. I mean, as I say, FEMT UK is our kind of sub-brand that we're driving a lot of this activity through. And I think it's all about kind of encouraging and inspiring the next generation of female founders. It is an industry which isn't the most diverse one going. I think you've got the problem of you've got the music industry, which isn't the most diverse at times.
Fair.
And the tech industry isn't that diverse at times. And so bringing them together, we've got a bit of a problem here.
Absolutely.
So a big part of our job is to help to kind of drive that forward, inspire the next generation, loads more events and activities where we're bringing in people. And actually, we've been talking to a charity recently, which is all about, called Code Hers. And they go into schools and try and inspire school-age kids, young women, to inspire them to get into coding or actually into tech in general, not just coding, all the different elements of what's going on in the technology industry. So we're exploring ways of getting involved in organisations like this to inspire young people, young women, and young people of all kind of diverse backgrounds to get into music and music tech, because it's a fun place to be. All young people, or lots of young people, love music.
Absolutely, of course,
And there's technology around them all the time. we actually think this could be a really kind of beautiful marriage for kids to kind of come together and find an inspiring kind of career for themselves. But we've got to educate them a bit about it because they don't know.
Absolutely. No, if you was to to actually rephrase the question I was going to ask, when start an initiative like that, which obviously is very important for the future generation, as you say, where do you even start?
Well, the brilliant thing that we've got is loads of really intelligent, engaged members who are opinionated and have ideas about how we should be changing the sector.
Yeah.
The great thing about having a trade association, all the brains you've got in the room, and it's absolutely brilliant. It takes the weight off me, in fact. So it's great. So we'll get them together, we'll have a discussion, we'll collaborate, we'll think about ways of doing things, and then we'll build a plan from it. And you always know that you're going to get a great plan because it's on so many people's heads to bring this together, and such passionate people involved in music tech. They really do want to kind of see the industry move forward. They want to see more diversity, want to see more opportunity, and they want to. We're also driving through lots of other things, like driving forward our argument to government around better investment in music technology, driving arguments forward about kind of opening things up, for pathways into music tech as a career. So there's lots of ways that we're engaging, and we've got lots of passionate members that actually want to help that story.
Is this related to the 12-person strong advisory board that I read? We've
got an advisory board of great people that have been really influential in getting this together. Give you a bit of background. The way Music Tech UK kind of started was that I went out to South by Southwest in 2023, a place where often strange ideas are developed over a few drinks late at night, and got talking to people about this idea that maybe we should launch a trade association to help support music tech companies, particularly because I've been working with music tech companies for years and a PR side of things, and I saw over and over again the same kind of issues emerging for them. They were always kind of struggling to get investment. This financial runway thing has always been a big challenge. They're always struggling to get good tech talent to help them code, because the music tech sector goes up against fintech and all those other sectors that can pay quite a bit more, I'm afraid. So there's a lot of competition there for good tech talent. And then the other thing is building good relationships with record labels, rights holders, and all those kind of people, and building deals there, which can be time consuming and difficult. And we all noticed, we've got talking about this, we all noticed over a few drinks the same kind of issues. So we thought, well, let's try and kind of build something which can kind of mitigate some of those issues, or try and build a strategy to kind of help music tech startups get through them and survive in their first difficult years of development.
If you don't mind me, I'm just going to park MTUK for 1 second, because I know this is where you are now, and I think you've just obviously just dropped it into conversation briefly there. Obviously, your background with PR and communications just shows that for the listeners' benefit. Obviously, I know, but for listeners, can you give us a bit of an overview of what you were doing beforehand and what led you up until the point now?
Do you want, how far back shall I go?
Go for it.
Right to the start.
For me personally, and hopefully the listeners anyway, I always like to understand a journey, because it's always nice to see what's influenced where you are now. You're now in a position where actually you're a voice of influence, so to speak. So what's created Matt Cartmell?
Yeah, that's great, Ben. So essentially, I guess it goes back to I started off doing tech PR in the early 2000s or even late 90s, and came to London to do that from Birmingham, which was my hometown. Started to do that. Immediately started to get distracted by lots of other things going on in London, like live music, which I absolutely loved. I mean, I'm a child of the 90s, or at least grew up in the 90s, so like Britpop, electronic music, rave culture, all of that stuff.
A few of them, Oasis.
You've got some great
Beatles,
The Prodigy, fantastic.
Of course, Arctic Monkeys.
I love it all. So all that kind of stuff was in my kind of upbringing, and it was a really exciting time for music. Remained really passionate about music, and so when I came to London, as I said, I kind of got going to lots of gigs, met people that writing for music magazines and fanzines and all that kind of stuff, many of which don't exist anymore, and the whole model's completely changed in music publishing. But and then started to write for the music magazine The Fly. So I was writing for that for quite some time. And then so the tech PR kind of trailed off a bit there as I got distracted by that. But then I got kind of interested in news journalism, so kind of local news, I'd work for a local newspaper, and I'd go and do knocking on people's doors and asking them about the local knife crime incident.
Have you seen Afterlife?
Is it? Yes, very like that.
Character.
Very, oh my God, it's so close to home, that stuff. Some of the weird stories you get from people. So I had all that kind of thing, and that that was not a well-paid job. And then my next kind of step was going to trade journalism, and I went to write for a magazine called PR Week, which is a PR trading. So you're writing about agency life and hires and fires and interviewing agency bosses and all that kind of thing.
Sorry, excuse me.
And no problem at all. And then my next step was I went to work for the trade association associated with the PR industry. So obviously I knew the CEO through my work at PR Week, a guy called Francis Ingham, and he appointed me to the job of communications director. So it's kind of my first in-house communications job, and also my first trade association job. And I was there for 7 years, and I really learned a lot there actually, in terms of how to lead a communications team, how to actually sort of do that kind of campaigning thing for a trade association and kind of get your message across, get people behind you to fight, fight for the corner of the industry.
Training for MTUK,
exactly.
Even back then, I love it.
I just didn't even know it at the time. So all that kind of thing came into play, and that was brilliant. And then I think I got to 2019, just before COVID, decided to go and do my own thing. So I launched my own PR agency at that point.
Okay. Is this Carter?
Yeah, this is Carter Communications. So I launched that in 2019. And initially, so I was doing all sorts of bits and pieces. So marketing tech companies, lots of startups, marketing tech companies, communications technology, but also music technology came into play. I started with one client, got really interested in that, reminded me of lots of the music stuff I was really interested in from way back. And built and eventually just focused on music technology as a client base. So really got kind of focused on that, and then that's what led me to let's launch Music Tech UK. That's amazing. The natural next step.
So how do you think what your background in PR then has benefited you in something like MTUK? Obviously, exactly as I said a second ago, having this ability to be a voice for the industry, but then having the PR background where you can hopefully put it across in the right way. Have you found a lot of them skills transferable? How are you using them on a daily basis for what you do now?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'll let you into a little secret. I'm not a particularly good technologist. And I'm actually not really a musician at all either. So that's the thing. But one thing I have been doing for 25 years is kind of telling stories about technology. So right from the early days of my PR work is kind of looking at a piece of technology and saying, this is how it changes things, this is how it's different, this is how it's improving what's going on already, and telling that story and creating something out of it. And I think often, not often, sometimes technologists, they're so close to the thing that they've built, they're not necessarily the best people at telling that story.
It's that tunnel vision, isn't it? I suppose in many ways, It
is, exactly. So people like me can come along and kind of say, let's tell this story. This is how you're changing the narrative. This is how you're changing what's going on. And also kind of weaving in the personal stories of the people that have built it. And I think that's really important, actually, is I think that particularly in creative areas and creative technologies, music, the story of the founders is just as important, I think, as the technology, and weaving all these things together, showing how that founder's story or founders going from A, B to C, and things they've learnt along the way, and how they've built something off the back of that life story. Those are the kind of things we try to weave together. So all of that kind of thing, really helpful in building a trade association, because ultimately what we're trying to do is, that's on a micro scale in terms of one company that we're telling the story of. Well, now I'm telling a story about the whole industry, about how this is what's happening in technology and music. This is why this is important. On the one hand, the music industry, in the UK is culturally kind of, the heritage is incredible, isn't it? In the UK. On the other hand, we've got technology companies. The innovation that's in the UK at the moment is really well respected, bring those things together, you've got an untold story, an unsung song about why this is a really powerful story, and it's kind of trying to weave these things to really tell the true story of what's going on.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to Sylvia Montello, right? Obviously, I know you're very
Sylvia.
fond of.
Yeah.
And she, obviously, we were kind of chatting about the different roles she had between sort of AFEM and AIM. And one of the biggest battles, obviously, with AFEM, you know, it's focused on electronic music. So you tend to find that a lot of the members are, excuse me, that a lot of the members are, in many ways, you know, they're unanimous in their sort of kind of goals. Is about trying to broaden, you know, better everything for electronic music. Whereas when she was doing something for AIM, because it was so diverse, it was like what you're doing good for one might negatively impact another. How does that work with tech? Because obviously, once again, that's a very broad, diverse area, right? Did you find that? Well, I'll pose the question to you. How would you find sort of trying to mitigate these battles for everyone, you know, with different impacts?
It's such an interesting point. And we were just talking about it today, actually, on a conference call this afternoon, because we've got this committee together of people within Music Tech UK that are helping us to put together public policy plans and that kind of thing. And we were just discussing the fact that actually it's a really diverse and that's a good thing, really diverse membership that we've got. And so trying to create consensus amongst such a breadth of viewpoints is really challenging. I actually really love those kind of challenges because it almost seems impossible, but you can find a way.
Well, it's mediation as well.
Absolutely.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I love this kind of thing. So basically, you know, for instance, a really good example of this is our response to the government's AI consultation.
Yeah, I saw you were obviously in the panel recently.
Yes,
right?
we went on to the Lords the other day to kind of discuss the report that's coming. And we had to put together a response to the government's consultation. And bringing together a bunch of viewpoints from across our membership. On the one hand, we've got AI companies that are doing lots of interesting things in AI. On the other hand, we've got a section of the music industry which is doing lots of stuff in music. It's only a section of it, but it's certainly doing stuff in music. And lots of people in between who are blends of those two worlds. How do we bring together the viewpoint which is informed, appropriate? And we did it. You know, we're really pleased with the response we've done there. But it takes a lot of hard work. And you're right, there are certain organisations and groups where they'll probably find it easier or at least more straightforward to get a single message. And I don't think we're one of those bodies. There's a lot of voices going on here that we need to bring together.
Obviously, not to sort of kind of labour too much on the AI, but I certainly, a lot of people I've spoken to, it's always a bit of a mixed message from them. Sorry, it's not a mixed message. I think there's certainly mixed emotions about it, right? Because I think there's areas that AI can be hugely beneficial, but then obviously areas where it's not necessarily not beneficial, but maybe isn't managed in the right way. And I think obviously one of those areas is naturally production and you know, artificially created tracks. What is your viewpoint on that? And obviously not to sort of kind of go into it too deep, but you've just put your point across to Lords, etc. What was the message you said?
So ultimately, I think that AI is a hugely, massively valuable tool that's going to increasingly be useful for the industry. I don't know. I mean, do you ever use AI at all, Ben? And what you're doing here in studio?
Me and AI, me and ChatGPT are best friends.
I love it.
Yeah. No, I think it's one of those things, right, where it can do a lot of the groundwork. But then I think you still need to give it that human touch.
That's right.
Right. So being frank, a lot of the preparation I do is, you know, it gives me ideas. It's like, even for a conversation now, it's just like, look, this is everything I know about Matt. This is everything I know about MTUK. Here's a load more stuff for you to analyse to see if there's anything I've missed. What do you think are some good talking points? And then I look here, I've got my iPad, and a lot of this was constructed by ChatGPT. But at the same time, I then take that and go, right, okay, how can I put that into a human, organic conversation? And I think, the benefits are really huge. If I look at it more from a music basis, and thank you for throwing this question back at me. It's actually the first time
I'll do that. Yeah.
I look at it and, like, as I say, I know I've spoke to the likes of Alex Branson, Sylvia, Timmy Montello, Tom Allen at Downtown.
Yeah.
I've spoke to obviously producers like Andy McDougall, etc., and Paddy, our first guest, and you know, I do think that from a production element, it's dangerous in a sense that right now that it's not managed in the correct way. I think if it's AI produced tracks are managed and monitored and maintained under that premise, and therefore rights are correctly reflected, go for it. Why not?
Yeah.
One of the things I know, look, as you can probably see, you know, my passion was always, you know, DJing, running events and things like that. And whilst I've got Cubase and had a play on it to try and produce, I'm not a producer. You know, I've got some great ideas, but I'm not a sound engineer. I don't know how to do it. You know, it's time, quite frankly, that I want to spend on what I love. Yeah. But let's be honest, these days, you know, to get decent gigs, you've got to be producing. And unless you're using someone like a ghost producer, how do you do it? You're not going to be able to release music unless you're getting help from somewhere, whether that's an individual or whether it's AI. And let's be honest, there's not really too much difference between them other than what's been learned from. But then when you look at it from other areas, like when I was talking to Tom about what he's doing with, you know, building tech within Downtown and how it's helping them build and release new code like that, which a developer might take a month to do. You know, that area, like, that's going to massively impact what we can do in the future from a tech perspective. And so to throw it back to you, you know, what do you is there anything exciting that you're aware of that's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think I completely agree with all of that. My view is, I think that a lot of people make the mistake of assuming that artists, musicians, and music creators are these kind of Luddites, or you know, anti-progress and hate AI, would never use it, and it's us versus them. And it's absolutely wrong. There's absolutely no truth in it. And in fact, what you always find with new technologies is it's the kids finding new technologies, mucking about with them, doing the wrong thing with it rather than the right thing, always finding a way to muck about with it and do the thing that was never intended in the first place, and creating a new genre of music out of it, basically, which goes on to do amazing stuff. Happens time and time again. AI is just going to be another one of those kind of tools where you're going to see that kind of explosion of exciting stuff going on, coming from young people, coming from new artists, creating something interesting and new. We're already seeing, you know, within our membership, great tools which are being created to help artists co-create, you know, kind of what you're talking about there, like the co-pilot thing, bouncing ideas off each other and using it as a co-writer, whatever. It's all about augmenting the work that they do rather than trying to displace artists and all that kind of thing. So there's loads of great stuff in our membership. With technology companies that are doing that kind of stuff, helping to augment the work of artists, you know, and from that to kind of creation and production, post-production, mixing, mastering and all that kind of thing. There's tools for all this kind of stuff. That means that someone, you know, working at home, sitting at home, making tracks can make something sound bloody great, as opposed to awful. And actually can take something which really realizes their vision in a way that could never have been done before. That's got to be a really good thing to kind of like enable more people to come to market and enable more things to come out that people want to listen to and change the way things come. And as I say, I think that new genres are going to be kind of built off the back of what's happening in AI right now. So I think it's a really exciting time. But you're absolutely right. We're firmly of the belief that copyright needs to be observed.
Absolutely.
Copyrights are fundamental.
Yeah.
That doesn't change for us. Some people have a different view, but Music Tech UK's view is that is the fundamental thing. But there are many new opportunities that can be done with licensing and finding new ways for tech companies to work together with musicians and artists and record labels. But what we've got to do is we've got to get people around the table together to work these things out.
Yeah, of course.
And so when we were at the Lords yesterday, which was attended by Bjorn Ulvaeus, which was pretty great. And he said himself, Bjorn, that he uses AI all the time to write tracks with. As a co-writer, obviously his huge talent is a big part of it too.
Crazy, isn't
Let's
it?
not forget
that.
But he co-writes stuff with AI, mucks about with it,
Amazing.
just things like that. As I say, artists, aren't Luddites. They are interested in stuff, but we've just got to get the frameworks right. We've got to get people around the table to sort this stuff out and make sure that copyright's observed whilst advancing licensing opportunities to make it work for everyone.
What do you think the biggest challenge is making that actually happen? And obviously, I know you mentioned actually getting people together.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. It's the polarization of viewpoints. It's the polarization of viewpoints is the problem. And it's organisations like ours that I think can be one part of trying to find solutions, because ultimately we can be something of a mediator. We can be something of sort of, on the one hand, we've got the music industry stuff. On the other hand, we've got the voices from tech and AI. And that's kind of one of the offers that we made to government when we put in our response to the consultation, is allow us to kind of help you to get those disparate voices together in a room and find ways of finding common ground and mediate on all these very complex discussions. And actually, our people really understand AI.
Yeah, of course.
I'm not saying I do.
Make delegation. That's the reason you employ the bright people.
Exactly. But we've got brains in the room
that
are creating AI stuff every day. Allow them to kind of help to kind of navigate this stuff. I think there are some challenges there. We're still very, very polarized in this discussion.
So say for example, someone was looking to, and I feel this question is quite related, but say someone's looking to set up a new music tech company tomorrow or today, whatever, and it doesn't matter necessarily what it is, but let's say it's incorporating AI. Do you think there's any sort of kind of barriers or obstacles to that you would advise them to avoid, or certain elements of it they would avoid that might cause complications down the way? Or do you think just go for it, play, and what's your opinion on that?
I can totally believe that AI companies should be ethical in their sourcing of their data, and I think that is something that is really obviously really important. That's a common view these days, I think. I was actually talking when we went along to this discussion the other day at the Lords, talking to another trade association called UK AI, and they hold the same viewpoint that all AI, and they've got lots of AI companies in their membership, all AI should be trained on ethically sourced data. Whereas LLMs should be trained on ethically sourced data.
Sorry to jump in, I definitely want to Can you elaborate on how that works? Well, certainly my understanding is AI, so let's take ChatGPT, whatever, is learning from everything. So, if it's learning from Taylor Swift, it's learning from these, it's learning from Underground, it's learning from everything that's kind of uploaded, let's say. How would that data be ethically sourced in that sense?
It's got to be sourced so that the people that created the data in the first place, so that, for instance, the artists that created the music that was used to create that data approve of, and the license holders approve of the music being used for that reason. So lots of AI companies do that kind of all the time. I mean, most of them do, I think. But don't quote me on that. But I think, let's say a lot of them do, that are sourced on ethically sourced data. And so this doesn't have to be that difficult, but I think that, this is kind of, this is a fundamental that it needs to be sourced in this kind of way.
So I just want to thank you just for touching base on AI anyway, because as I say, you see, it's very much a buzzword at the minute, and something that I talk about in pretty much every episode I've had so far, because it affects people in different ways, but I don't want to spend too much more time on it. What I do want to talk about is really coming actually on to perhaps the partnerships that MTUK are doing. Now, obviously, we've spoke about internally, you've got your 12 person strong advisory board. You've recently sort of kind of gone into Home with Home. Who else are you partnering with, and what's the goals with them? Is it something that you do strategically, or you just open to any? Tell me a little about that.
Yeah, it's a good point. So we have had some really great partnerships. I'm really proud of some of the partnerships we've had since we launched, because we're quite new. We're a year and a half old, we've come into the sector and we've said, we're here, come and join us, get involved somehow, that kind of thing. And just, we waited to see what happened. And it's been amazing, the kind of partnerships we've achieved. We've had, so last year, a couple of things stand out for me, actually. So last year, we partnered with Digital Catapult, which do lots of kind of programs to kind of support different industry sectors, the technologies for those sectors to help develop them and build opportunities for them, accelerator programs and all of this kind of thing. And we partnered with them last year to do a high growth accelerator for AI companies in music. Partnered with them and got 3 companies through which worked within their kind of 12-week program, Music Tech UK members. Amazing. And they got supported by Digital Catapult to kind of accelerate their program, their companies.
An incubator type thing.
Yeah, exactly. So what they do is there'll be a program of activities such as events that can go along to. They get kind of one-to-one training. They get technologists come and talk to them about their platforms, the AI that they're using, and so on. Give them all these opportunities they wouldn't otherwise have got to kind of help them develop and kind of fast forward through their development in that kind of way. So that was great. Digital Catapult, amazing company to get involved with, and great to kind of like to see, it kind of helps us to amplify what we're doing, to use a musical reference, to amplify what we're doing, which we wouldn't normally be able to achieve. And then kind of come forward to this year, we're really pleased to be able to say that we're partnering with the UK government, Department of Business and Trade.
Amazing.
Yeah, to do a mission for music tech companies. Fantastic. To take them out to LA. So basically that's happening around now.
Do a podcast count as tech?
Yes, you have to come out with us.
Done.
We'll sort it. So basically, they get to come out for a week of activities, go to LA. Amazing. They do loads of great meetings, introductions, kind of help them to grow their global footprint and get great connections across the water and all that kind of thing. And again, it's just another great example of how we're taking what we can do, which is we're like a doorway into the music tech sector.
Yeah.
We've got that. And on the other hand, we've got these great organisations which have far more reach and opportunity, and bringing these two together. So there's more partnerships like that we'd like to do in the future, where we're kind of creating things with those really useful partners.
Yeah, what can you say is it's like that community, that hub, right? You've got your members come to you, but then they get access to all these people who specialise in helping their business grow, and the advisors give. Is there a obviously you mentioned about growing your partners. Is there an area that you feel is like underserved at the minute? Is there something that you would love to happen within the tech scene that isn't yet?
I think that one of the things, just to speak quite broadly about opportunities for the music tech sector, is we've worked with some great organisations, and what you'll tend to do is you'll do a set piece thing. So it could be a mission, or it could be an accelerator program, and it could be a 12-week program, something like that. It can be quite piecemeal. Okay. I'm not knocking these things at all. They've been fantastic to work on with people. But I think that for the future, what we want to do is find opportunities to kind of create more long-term strategic strategies in partnership with the UK government, other bodies, Innovate UK, Department, whatever it is, and create a longer-term strategy for support and development of music technology. And it could include accelerator programs, missions, and all those kind of things, but to kind of bring this stuff together and create a longer term view on it. So
no matter when someone joins you, there's an opportunity for them to still learn. It's not just about having that one session at that one point.
Exactly.
It's a continuous support.
Exactly. And I think what we need to do is get government on board to kind of recognise the value and importance of music technology. And to recognise that story and come on with us to help build that strategic program. And that's kind of, I think that's where we're going next, probably, is to build that kind of, that long-term program. One of the things that we're doing is preparing a report on the music tech sector, which will be coming out fairly soon, which will be looking at the size of the sector in the UK, its value, the value to investors, and the opportunities for investment, and getting a range of views in that and putting a figure on it.
That's good. Sorry to jump in, but that's fantastic, right? Because you see that a lot. People have their ideas, they know what they're doing, but actually building a business is one. Getting investors to understand what your business is another. And that's an area that, let's be honest, barely anyone knows. That unless you're like a really sort of serial entrepreneur and have done it over and over again, that's a landscape that's incredibly complex. So how would you, and obviously look, I'm not asking you to get into the nitty gritties now, and maybe this is a question for someone else on the board, but if you were to give like a very high level overview or a piece of advice to someone out there who's thinking about trying to grow their business, where would you start? What would your advice to them be?
Well, first of all,
give MTUK
come and join us because we can help you, because it's all about community. We can help you reach the right people, make the right connections. And it depends where you are in your story, I guess, doesn't it, as well? Because we've got some very early stage people that are really just learning how to navigate music, music tech, how the right system works, how the very complex music industry works, which can be pretty confusing for a newcomer, how to navigate that world, also navigating tech and all the opportunities that are around kind of funding and investment. There's a lot to learn here. It's really complex. And for someone who's coming into it, we could be that kind of first port of call. Absolutely. Shameless plug, I know.
No, please,
to help
please,
people,
that's the point of this, right?
to help people to come along and kind of learn and kind of gain an insight into the industry. And I think that's one point. But I think, investment, like the number one thing that our members are interested in, it always comes out number one.
Really?
For obvious reasons. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm quite surprised about that. I would have thought they'd have been more about, I don't necessarily know thinking about it now. But I would have thought it'd be more about just understanding the industry a bit more. And
I guess it's just the one thing.
Money, right?
I think it's just the one thing that means that they can continue to survive and keep going. And I think it's runway, isn't it? Ultimately, that's what we're talking about. So it is. It's difficult. It's challenging at the moment to kind of get those things. So I think that there's work for us to do to help to drive recognition within the investment community to see that music tech is an opportunity. And there have been lots of interesting investments in music tech over the last year, but we'd like to see a lot more. And we'd like to and so this report that I just mentioned, that's part of that is us giving an opportunity to show the investment community actually how it works. I think some investors are a bit scared of music.
It's an ever-changing landscape.
Yeah.
Right? Let's be honest, genres can be fads. They come and go.
Yeah.
You've only got to look at a boy band or one of these pop idol type or X Factor type things. These people last 2 minutes, right? I suppose it's a bit different for tech though, right? But then I suppose tech once again, it's hit or miss, I guess.
Well, I suppose the things that they're scared of within the tech kind of world is that, if you compare music tech to fintech or all these other kind of areas of technology, what music has is it's got all these weird complexities like the music rights kind of landscape and all that kind of thing. And I think that just sometimes scares investors a bit, that kind of thing.
There's a lack of understanding a little bit, right?
Yeah, so there's some education to be done there. And I think that's part of what we're trying to do. It won't happen overnight.
Of course, yeah.
But things like this report that we're going to bring out is part of our steps towards kind of trying to fix some of these things, or at least help to educate. And I suppose, part of the role of a trade association is it's all about speaking different languages to different people. Investors speak one language. We've got to learn how to help them speak their language, communicate with them the right way, help our members to speak that language.
Of course,
we do things like Pitch Club, which our members come together on a Wednesday.
Cool.
And it's like a bit of a Dragon's Den style vibe. So basically they come together, do their pitch, and then get kind of a bit of a bit of brutal kind of honest feedback about kind of how they've done it.
Though, right? Let's be honest.
Absolutely, yeah. Presentation skills are really important. But all of these things are all wrapped up in this idea of us helping bring these worlds together a bit.
Yeah, of course.
I guess.
If you don't mind me asking, and I want to be conscious how I ask this question, because MTUK, as you said earlier, it's 18 months old. But has already got quite a strong voice in the industry. Let's be honest. As you say, you're at a panel with the government at Lords. You're about to do something with business and trade. How did you? And maybe this is your background coming into play, but how do you even start? Having a voice. Where does it come from? What's the first step? How have you built to where you are now?
It's a really good question. I'm not entirely sure if there's one answer to that, Ben, but I love the question. And I think that some of it's instinctive. I think that, as I say, my communications background does come into it, I think. So it's all about that honed message, an authentic message, and kind of knowing what the way to communicate to different stakeholders, be it the media. Like, for instance, the media, when you communicate with them, it's very much around telling a story. It's a narrative, human examples, case studies and all that kind of thing. But then if you're going out to, say, government, it's much more about what's the economic impact of something, how's this going to kind of create growth, jobs, exports and all that kind of thing. So it's different messages for different community different groups. And wrapping all these things together, having brilliant people along for the ride. That 12-strong advisory board are absolutely brilliant, and they've helped me so much. I couldn't have done it without them. I can't believe I've got so many great people along for the ride, and that really started it all off. Having those well-connected, intelligent people.
Testament to yourself, though, buddy.
Well, I guess so, and I feel very flattered for that, because I think I've had such amazing work, great conversations with people in what we're doing. That's definitely a big part of our story.
So I love that, and I think, coming back to the name MTUK, being this voice for the UK, and I want to talk a little bit more about how the UK is in comparison to the rest of the world. But what are you doing anything internationally as well? I think, if I'm not mistaken, I read that you were sort of kind of doing some stuff with Europe and so forth. Do you have to does the message change much when you go across borders?
Yep. So the way that we're working with a kind of European partners and that kind of thing is that we're members of an association called MTUK Europe, which is an umbrella body. So there's a MTUK France, MTUK Germany. MTUK Germany, they've been going the longest actually, and there's lots of other ones around Europe. And so this is our forum to all come together, share ideas. We have a monthly call. We all come on together, share ideas, discuss kind of, how we, and I help each other, provide advice. We tried this, try that kind of thing. So that's our kind of European forum to bring things together. And ultimately, that's quite fledgling as well. MTUK Europe is a fairly new body. But ultimately, I think there's a real opportunity there for us to kind of use that as a route for our members into Europe, create connections in different countries. There's a great conference that takes place in July in Belgium called Wallifornia, which is the kind of big music tech conference, which we all go along to. And it's those kind of, that's another great community in music technology, actually, Wallifornia. It's those kind of communities coming together and building a European-wide community, which I think, that's quite exciting.
Do the challenges between countries change much?
Lots of similarities. Investment is the big one for all of us.
Number one, no matter where in the world you are.
but I suppose the difference is that you've got different people behave differently in different countries.
Well, the investors themselves want to be pitched in different ways, etc. Right?
And the public have different needs and requirements in different countries. For instance, in the UK, I believe I heard the other day that physical product is now more lucrative than streaming for the first time ever again.
Oh, really?
I need to see the figures.
I was going to say,
which sounds surprising, but it's all about, because I guess my understanding of it is streaming has now reached a peak.
Okay.
Everyone's got Spotify. Where else is it going to? If you got Spotify, where else are we going to go?
Well, it's quite funny because you're actually still seeing new streaming services being launched.
There are new ones.
Literally, I saw one the other day which was focused on like electronic underground music and and I think it's like USP was about how you can interact with fans, which I actually that element I think's great. But what a difficult market to try and break into.
Absolutely. Was that Next Artist the platform? That's one of our members. They're doing that kind of thing.
Something with C. I can't remember what it was called. I'll send it to you.
Pop it over to me.
But it was. I was like, I think that funny enough, Sylvia and I had, and not to completely take over the question but I know Sylvia and I were talking about, let's say, the lack of direct social media coverage for music. You've got obviously, you've got your Facebook, your TikToks, your things like that, but in amongst what might be an independent artist trying to put their music out there, you're getting your cat videos, your idiot videos and all that type of thing. Whereas actually I think there is a massive, let's say, market for just music social media.
Definitely agree.
And I think, you know, if you can get someone that has this, let's say, this universal streaming service, so that no matter, and funny enough, this is exactly what Sylvia and I were talking about, was that like at the minute, you know, you might have someone on Apple, someone on Spotify, someone on YouTube, whatever. So if you're sharing tracks, actually, it's very difficult to do that. And so you want this kind of, let's say, this hub that connects everything and allows people to not only connect with each other, but with the artist and the fans and vice versa. It is, and obviously coming back to the point that we were talking about, you know, is once again, is this something that you're seeing across Europe and other places, and what is going on with that change? And coming back to the hardware side, you know, what do you think the future is for that? Yeah,
I mean, and that's a really interesting point that you made about kind of platforms focused on purely music. I remember the days of MySpace back in the mid 2000s, which is a brilliant, you know, grassroots hub for music discovery and community creation and all that kind of thing. It was absolutely fantastic. And there's never been anything quite like it since, has there? And there's a lot of our members that are actually kind of toying with ideas like, you know, creating the new MySpace, actually. And that's a great concept. And as you say, finding ways to feed in all of your streaming platforms, which didn't actually exist at the time. Before it was kind of MP3 era, wasn't it? All that kind of thing at the time. So feeding all these kind of things in. I think fan engagement is obviously a big focus for a lot of music tech companies now. There's a lot of work being done here to kind of find out ways to kind of engage, and that awful term monetize fans, which is terrible, to kind of create more engagement points for fans with their favorite artists and so on. And these kind of like platforms like a MySpace, kind of new MySpace version. I think there's more to come with all this. And I think we are waiting for that great, you know, music discovery platform that is about community, collaboration, finding ways to bring people together under, you know, their love for their favourite artists. There's something more to come here. I think we're waiting for it, I think.
Well, funny enough, I know I've just spoke about this on a couple of my previous podcasts. One of the features that the Beatport brought out, are you aware of Label Radar?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
essentially a demo submission platform.
Okay, yeah.
So like you'd have your label, you know, if you're an independent artist or an artist, should I say, and you're looking to submit, you utilise it because it not only allows you to track who you've submitted to, you'll be able to get you know, statuses. Have they seen it? Can they give? Have they given feedback? But there's also an element to it that allows listeners, the fans, to actually hear as well. So if like a label is thinking about, I want to test this track out, actually you can get the kind of fan feedback before you've signed it, released it. And also, if you I've signed it and I'll release it, it also enables you to sort of kind of build up that momentum and that sort of kind of engagement around that track before release. I just thought that was a brilliant idea. Certainly from the conversation, that's quite unique. Are you aware of anything similar to that, you know, being sort of kind of very close to the tech scene?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many great innovative ideas which bring together communities and like, you know, who are united by a passion for a particular artist or genre or whatever it is, an artist on the other one, and kind of burgeoning artists. And there are alternatives to the streaming platforms that we're seeing at the moment. Yeah, there's a huge amount of change going on here and opportunity. I think probably the danger is with all of this kind of stuff is that, as we know, there's a number of key players in the industry who are very, very dominant and very, very, very much seen as the go-to, you know, Spotify and all those kind of places. It's hard to break through that, but I hold out hope that innovative platforms and great ideas will always find an opportunity as long as they're given the right opportunities.
I was going to say, do you find that sort of the monopoly that the likes of Apple, Spotify, etc. do have are detrimental to the industry?
I do think that if things were kind of loosened up a bit and a bit of maybe just something shaken in the industry and move things to one side, break a few things up, what would come out of that would be lots of opportunity for innovators and technology companies coming up from the ground. So I think that, it does feel as though there could be something there which could help us to kind of build more opportunity for people and like loosen up the industry. I think things are very tight and constricted at the moment in the music industry. You've got a number of core players, aren't really moving much. Yeah, they're innovating a bit. They're building new services, and you've seen some of the new services being launched by Spotify recently. They're definitely launching new bits and bobs to their platforms. It's not that exciting. A lot of it. It's not really kind of getting anyone very, very kind of excited. So I think that we could do with a bit more loosening up at the top levels of the industry.
So jumping on that then, Matt, what is exciting you?
Good question. Okay. Well, I mean, one of the things we've already talked about, which is the AI tools that are being used by artists to kind of help them to kind of create and co-create and kind of master and produce all their tracks and all that kind of stuff. I think that's definitely one of the ones that I'm really excited by. And secondly, I'm really fascinated by this area of kind of immersive technologies. Okay. So I suppose
sort of VR.
So I guess more in that kind of realm of going into if you think about the live music environment, going into a live music environment with immersive sound experiences, but also coupled with immersive visual experiences as well, and kind of exploring some of these kind of worlds that you can create.
The Sphere in Las Vegas type
all
thing.
That kind of stuff. These kind of all-encompassing musical environments. I think this is kind of like the future of entertainment, isn't it, basically? Where people go out on a Saturday night, they're going to go to a gig. We've got to think about how live music remains relevant to young people and the next generation.
Absolutely,
and how it can sort of stay cool and exciting. I still love going to see bands playing guitars on a stage on their own, and that's brilliant. And lots of other people do as well. But also, there's so much room for innovation and development. And I think those kind of innovative worlds where we're getting immersed into environments, totally losing ourselves and forgetting the outside world. I think there's something there that is very cool indeed. Yeah, no,
I love that. Funny enough, I was reading the Boiler Room report, and it was talking about sort of the young audience, and obviously, despite how, let's say the polarization of the industry is going, there was this. I think it was like 91% of the youth still love it because of the community, because they've been putting in, but. When it comes to, as you say, the production, it's always now that trying to sort of kind of one up. And obviously, some of the events I remember is because it was just this epic scene, Like I remember one of my favourite events, and it might not sound that great to a lot of people out there, but it was I was at Drum Code Awakenings in a gas herder for ADE a few years ago, and it was little things like obviously outside of the fact that they've got lights everywhere doing their thing, and obviously you also got things like Eric Prid's Halo from a few years ago, and obviously what's going on with these sort of kind of really cool backing displays, but like little things like fireworks on string, just like going from one end to the other, little things like that. But then you look at them, what's happening with the Sphere, right? And with the ability that's got, and then I kind of think back to myself, well, the issue I think for myself is what you're finding now is the attention span of people is one thing, right? Yes, the music might pull them in, but what's keeping them there? What's making them want to go to that event over that event? Yeah. But obviously then what you're opening the doors to is, okay, how do the smaller events, how do the smaller promoters compete with that? Is there any exciting tech that would be able to help a smaller promoter be cool and interesting from that you're aware of?
I think that's a really good point, actually, because I think you're right that there is the danger that the smaller venues will get shut out from all the innovation that's going on, and it'll become a kind of polarized thing with the big venues. And of course, we've already seen all the problems that small local venues grassroots venues are going through at the moment.
We both live in London, right? We're seeing them closed down left, right, and centre, which is just such a shame.
Since so many closed down. So what are there's challenges there for them to move forward in that kind of way. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because one of the things that our members, a couple of our members are doing, particularly a company called Vol Video, is that they're providing opportunities. So if you've got a live gig that's going on at a venue, at the same time as that's taking place, there can also be cast the live experience into a virtual world, the metaverse.
I love that.
And the gaming environments and Fortnite and all that kind of thing. Simultaneously, at the same time, you've got all these virtual audience gathering round, you know, and watching in that kind of way.
Have you ever been on them?
Yeah, I've been a couple of those kind of things. Yeah,
I remember the first time I went. It was like obviously the classic Oculus, right? And obviously like the decks look exactly like this.
Yeah,
and like for someone that's played to big crowds, but also events where there's been no crowd. I said going on there and seeing what feels like a festival, which is
was there lots of people in your virtual crowd?
It's just crazy. It was not
amazing.
I think a lot of them were fake.
It was just or like a combination of the two.
Exactly. But like, the concept of it's really cool, and where Meta's going. I know, like for myself, when I used to do my events at Giggleham in Clapham, I used to do obviously like the standard live streams. Right, it's just like, okay, you can't make it to the venue. Okay, well here's a live stream.
Yeah.
And one of the things I actually thought about then, sadly, before it I thought about it just before it closed down, so missed the boat a little bit, was just having literally a 360 camera just hanging down. So is that people that did, even I know this was a few years ago, today's a lot more accessible. But for people who actually want to be in the moment, how easy it is just to put that camera, have someone put on their thing, and then right in the middle of a real crowd, in a real club, listening to a real DJ, in their pajamas, sitting at home.
Exactly.
I love that concept.
You're opening up the gig, the event, way beyond the walls of the venue, basically, aren't you? Providing that everyone anywhere in the world to kind of be a part of it too. Well,
this is, I suppose, sort of kind of going in the realms of like DICE. Now, I know DICE are sort of trying to create this new way of ticketing and sort of kind of live gigs, but obviously from home. With that, what's your, what's the future of that? If you was to sort of kind of, I don't know whether you might even know, but do you see that becoming bigger? Do you see it becoming sort of kind of really accessible? What do you see happening with this whole clubbing from home sort of scenario?
Yeah, I think that, part of the thing, I think, is the idea that, if you go for a night out, you go on the night out, you have a great night, and then it's over.
Yeah.
Right? So how can you broaden that out and lengthen it? What's the footprint that you could have of fun before the gig, during it, and then afterwards?
The companies as the promoters as well, right? Because if you charge
exactly
half the price for the ticket or a fraction of the price for the ticket, your audience, but you've got a capacity in a club for a few thousand.
Yeah.
Online, you've got capacity for unlimited.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
So from a revenue monetization revenue perspective, and as you say, given the fans who can't make it the ability to still be involved, I think it's a fantastic.
But then also for those fans that did come, how can you give them extra stuff to kind of build on top of that live experience? So after they leave, what kind of piece of content could they receive afterwards that's part of that live experience? What could they do in the run up to the gig that they could buy some merch or something that they could wear then they go to the venue? And how do you kind of draw out that experience beyond those few hours that they've got there? I think that's there's probably more to come there as well.
Absolutely. So what do you think are the biggest? Obviously, I know we've kind of said about that, and I know you've told us what's excited, and hopefully this isn't quite the same question. What do you think the biggest opportunity is in this space right now, in the music tech space?
Oh, interesting. Okay. One of the things that I think, beyond the ones that we talked about, and I think AI is a big opportunity. I think immersive technologies is. I think there's a couple of other ones that I'm interested in, and I think there's more to come with. So there's music learning, so music education platforms.
Music learning.
Yeah, exactly.
So the reason we exist.
So learning an instrument, it's time consuming, it's difficult, it's challenging. So finding new ways to help teach people using AI as well. A lot of these platforms use AI to kind of help people to kind of learn and work with them, be more intuitive about the way that they can learn, that kind of thing. I think that's a really interesting thing. And again, you wouldn't normally associate AI with actually helping people to learn traditional instruments, but we've got a number of members that are doing just that kind of thing. So that's a really cool area. And then another one is kind of focused around this idea about music and sound for wellness, mental health, and all that kind of well-being stuff. We've got a great member of ours called Medi Music, which are doing all this kind of stuff, which is, building, it's almost like a streaming platform in a way, building this opportunity for people to use music, use sound to kind of help them for whatever kind of treatments they need and help them to kind of prepare them and put them in the right mental mood and that kind of thing. And I love this idea that potentially one day you could get to a point where you're, you know, the NHS is prescribing a song or even a sound.
That's fantastic.
Isn't that a great thought?
Yeah,
you know,
it really is.
I'm looking forward to that day.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, like I don't want to repeat myself too much from previous episodes, but I was talking to Sylvia about this video I saw. This gentleman had Parkinson's, and obviously like, he was trying to sort of kind of grab his drink and shaking naturally, and then I think they put headphones on him and he started listening to his music. The next thing, he's just picked this up.
There you go.
That's just, for me, it's just like, that's just insane.
That's the power of music, isn't it? Actually,
really
right
is.
there. And like, we need to harness that better.
Yeah.
We're just starting, I think, in that journey of harnessing how that can help people's mental well-being, and, you know, the people experiencing people with Alzheimer's and all those kind of, you know, later life kind of experiences like that. I think there's a lot that music going to do to kind of help that. Yeah,
and I also must admit, like, even when I, you know, ahead of speaking to you today, when we've been chatting previously, when I've been doing my research and things like that, you know, them type of areas is just really something you don't naturally consider when you're thinking music tech. You know, for me, I'm thinking, MIDI keyboard, software, you know, drum machines, whatever it might be. But then you think, actually, the uses and areas, and obviously this is where I suppose your challenges are, once again, right, is being this voice for what actually is an incredibly broad scene.
It is. It's incredibly broad. Where it begins and ends, it's actually quite hard to say.
Very grey.
Yeah, it's very challenging to do. Well, we have built out a definition, which I won't recite to you now, but we have got a definition of music technology. I'll write it down, put it on the website. Yeah, we'll share it with you, actually. That'd be cool. But you're right, it is so broad. And it's, you know, we've for instance, one of our companies, just before I left the office today, I saw one of our members, and it's a company called Tazar. Okay. And what they do is they create little kind of tags that go on flight cases and stuff for security purposes, to ensure that your guitar doesn't get nicked, or your electronic, you know, keyboard equipment doesn't get nicked when you're on tour, to stop all that happening. That's music technology.
Yeah. You see, honestly, I'm like, you know, the more I'm thinking about it now, and, you know, I'm actually a little lost for words, because all I've got going from my head, there's this, and there's this. It's so much. It's really is crazy.
And that's part of the joy of running Music Tech UK is because we're creating these collaboration opportunities. You know, all of our members say that collaboration is kind of like the number one thing that they want to, or one of the number one things, top three things that they want to get out of their membership, kind of. And that's really cool, actually, because you can find great collaboration points.
Yeah, of course.
You know, if you've got that company, Tazar, they want to work with companies that are kind of, doing other things that artists are looking to purchase and subscribe to. Then bringing these things together is a really natural fit, and you can take those things to market. And we've actually got some great examples of how our members have come together through Music Tech UK and built collaborations and launched products together.
Can you tell us about any of those?
Yeah, so there's a company called Evolution Music. They make vinyl. They make records, and it's kind of like sustainable vinyl.
I was going to say they brought out this new plastic. It's not plastic anymore, is it? It's or whatever. Sorry, I'm completely cutting in.
And they've got a new plant in Iceland where they've just launched this new plant in Iceland. So they're members of ours, and that's already really cool. The idea about sustainable vinyl. And then on the other hand, we've got a company called Loop Fans, which is it's a Web3 company basically, kind of, you know, Web3 NFT related stuff. And they met through Music Tech UK. They collaborated and they brought together a new product, which is basically a record which is embedded with Web3 technology. So, you know, I love this idea that you've got, on the one hand, this, you know, the good old record.
A digital record.
Exactly. On the other hand, you've got an NFT, you know, this kind of Web3 technology embedded within the record, and the marriage of old and new. And it all happened through Music Tech UK.
Look at that. Pride of place, man. I love it.
It is pride of place on my record player.
Yeah. Whilst doing the digital downloads in the background. I love it.
Exactly, yeah.
So what are your goals over the next couple of years? And I appreciate what you've already achieved in such a short space of time, as I mentioned, and not to sort of kind of blow too much smoke up your bottom, but as I say, I think it's fantastic that you're already being a voice in the government. And as I say, I think one of the difficult things for me, one of the things I find difficult is, you see a lot of voices that sometimes shouldn't be voices. And I'm certainly not going to name any names or anything like that. But I think sometimes it's not about them being bad or anything like that. It's just about how sometimes the message is put across. So I think your background is fantastic. And I think that's testament to how well you've done so far, is the fact that you've been able to understand, is the fact that, as you mentioned earlier, different people need the message in different ways. Yeah. So to achieve what you've achieved is fantastic and great to see. So, but moving forward, you know, when you get to your 5th birthday, your 10th birthday, do you know what do you want to achieve by then? Are there milestones that you have, or are there specific I don't know, things that you want to get, topics that you want to get past? You know, what's the big focus for you, like short and longer term?
Yeah. So first of all, you know, it is that kind of achievement of recognition of the UK as being this powerhouse in music technology, and kind of taking out that story globally. So there's that recognition there. But then here at home, you know, it's all about getting the government on board to recognise that this is, you know, music tech is culturally really important, economically important as well.
Absolutely.
And that kind of, like, you know, soft power thing in terms of the UK's kind of soft power. Music technology is a you know, valuable part of that story that we're telling about the UK and that narrative about the UK. So I think that's something as well. And then also just providing our members with the means to be able to gain investment, gain support, gain long-term support from, as I mentioned before, we want to build those long-term strategic support for our members, so that there's it's not kind of piecemeal, it's something which is long and strategic. We want to build those kind of opportunities as well. So I think there's a couple of things there. Fair.
And obviously coming then back to your point earlier about obviously there being MT Europe and obviously MT and everything, how does, obviously, the music industry in the UK is, as we've already discussed, right? You know, you've only got to look back over the course of the past 50 years at what the UK has put out, and let's be honest, we're punching above our weight in many ways.
It's amazing.
How does our tech side of the industry pair up or compare against the others in the Europe, and how does it compare perhaps against the rest of our sort of kind of focus on music?
Well, that's the story, really, isn't it, of the UK? On the one hand, we've got this amazing musical heritage, but on the other hand, there's the studios, there's the labels, there's the artists, and all that kind of thing. There's the technologists that have come together to tell that story. That's the full story of UK's music. You know, I think that's the thing that makes us punch above our weight, is the fact that we've got that combination of both that heritage and that innovation piece. And like London, although it's not all about London, obviously.
Other places do exist.
Other places do exist. You know, it's that density that of, you know, all the labels are here, artists, startups, big tech, studios, all of that kind of thing, you know, all in walking distance of each other, all that kind of thing means that we're pretty unbeatable, I think, in terms of that. And then you've got all these other great hubs now, Manchester, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Bristol, which are also bringing their own kind of flavour of music technology as well.
Absolutely,
and there's amazing things, for instance, going on in immersive technology down in Bristol and so on.
Amazing.
So that there's all these other kind of really important hubs as well. I think a big part of it for me, another thing that, going back to your question about what do we want to achieve, is maybe to try and build better connections between these hubs in the UK.
Yeah, fair.
So that, you know, we want to kind of like, you know, we can be very London centric, can't we? It's a real problem, I think.
We do forget it's UK.
Absolutely right. So, you know, we're a UK wide organisation, Music Tech UK, obviously. So it really is all about kind of finding ways to connect those hubs together, create more opportunities. A lot of the stuff we've done in London so far, but my plan is for, you know, us to get out and do more stuff outside London, go to Manchester, go into Bristol and do events there as well. And I think that's kind of stage 2 for us, is to start to build these little hubs all around the UK as well.
Wonderful. Okay, so I've got a bit of a 2-part question next then. It's kind of the same question, but one focused on the music tech scene wholly, but then also separately you as an association. What support do you, and as I say, the 1 and 2, the A and B scenario, need from the UK to help continue growing? Now, as you mentioned, obviously looking at what you're trying to do for these disconnected entities, one in Bristol, one in Manchester, one in London. Obviously, from the sounds of it, they need support in the communication scenario. But if you was to kind of go a bit more broader, or maybe sort of kind of a bit more strategic, what support do they need to keep building and obviously and blossoming as a tech business in the UK?
So I think that there's a couple of things really. First of all, and I think I kind of touched on it before, it's this idea that we have disparate bodies that do certain things occasionally. And, we've partnered with Innovate UK, we've done something with Digital Catapult, we've done something with the government, we've partnered with other associations like the MMF and done events with them. And a lot of this thing can be quite focused and specific around the thing, but it almost feels as though what we need is a kind of strategy for music tech in the UK, and that to be developed at a government level with other stakeholders being involved in it as well, with proper funding being put behind it. And what that needs to try and achieve is to help to drive growth in the music tech sector and treat it as a proper global export, basically. And I think that's it's a mindset change I think is required in the way that the government's thinking about music tech as a sector. Creative technology is obviously broad, far broader than music, and there's a lot of recognition from the government of creative technology. There's a report that came out fairly recently about their focus on creative technology, but music tech played quite a small part in that. It wasn't really recognised even as a sector.
Oh, really?
Which was
crazy.
Which was disappointing.
That's really sad. Yeah.
So there's this kind of lack of recognition that we are a valuable, a vertical within the creative tech sector. So we want to try and sort of change that and actually kind of shade this. We're an important part of creative technology. We deserve our own kind of strategic thought and planning and getting the government behind what we're doing.
And obviously we'll come on to the support that perhaps MTUK need, but just actually a quick questions based on what you said. Obviously, when you start thinking about, as you say, how diverse it is, you've got your creatives, your technologists, all these. What's the biggest challenge you find with aligning these people? And I know we briefly spoke about earlier sort of this whole different cause, different trying to the mediation, but what's the biggest challenge you do see about actually aligning these people for the greater good?
Do you know what? It's not that challenging in a way.
Oh, that's good.
Because actually,
end of conversation.
Because they're funny things, trade associations. Because it's weird in a way, isn't it? Because what they are, it's a bunch of competitors, really, or at least partial competitors. You get them in a room together, and normally they'd probably be quite suspicious, or maybe not, but they might be. But with a trade association, there's a sort of it's a strange kind of atmosphere that enables them to kind of say, we put that aside and we're going to try and look for collaboration and share ideas and work for the greater good, basically. And I love that. I think that's such a great thing, and all trade associations, if they're good, can help to achieve that. And they put their differences aside and say, let's try and figure something out together.
I was about to ask, obviously, having done the trade association for the PR side, and obviously now music, have you found that there's a big any differences between how easy it is or how much people want to work together? Because my background in my sad career is kind of in fintech, finance and things like that. Whilst there's elements that people might sort of come, we need to change this regulation or whatever it might be. Actually, in the grand scheme of things, everyone is so dog eat dog that I see it personally where it's incredibly difficult to get everyone actually being honest with each other, because they want to better, it's all about sales, you say ROI to the investors. But obviously I do feel in the music industry there is a bit more of a community spirit. It does bring everyone together a little bit more.
There is,
Did you find that, and as I say, coming back to the original question, did you find there was a difference between what you were doing with the PR side to what you are doing now with the music?
Actually quite similar in a way. If I think about going back to the PR industry, I do think there was a lot of activity which was focused on sharing ideas,
cool. That's good.
Building towards specific broad aims that everyone sort of got behind together, sharing a degree of information that they want to share. You know, you hold a bit, you always hold a bit back, I think, don't you? And I think that's
just
natural.
Dipping the toe.
You're not getting your financials out in front of them or anything like that.
Absolutely
but you know, within reason, I think there's a lot of sharing, and I think that that was the cool thing about the PRCA and working there, and that's the thing that I'm really seeing with Music Tech UK is the kind of come on, let's do this kind of attitude.
Amazing.
It's great. Yeah, it's really great. Really positive. That. Yeah.
So then coming back to the second part of the original question, which was obviously we covered what support the companies in music tech need. What support does MTUK need? Because obviously, does that differ in any way? You know, obviously you're a growing business yourself, right? You want more members, you want more voices, you want more ideas, and blah blah. You know, what would benefit you the most, and what support do you need in that sense?
So you know, you're absolutely right. Membership drives the business and allows us not only to kind of build our base, our cohort, as it were, but also financially it helps us as well. So come, you know, for Music Tech members to come on board and join, it's actually low cost, or reasonably low cost, I should say, for membership. And then we also have associate memberships, which are a little bit higher cost for larger organisations that want to get involved. Like KPMG are involved. D&B Group.
That's quite surprising. Sorry to jump in. I don't mean to interrupt you, Matt, but obviously my career in finance, very familiar with KPMG. I'm surprised they'd be in music.
Yeah, so KPMG do a lot of things that you don't necessarily associate with them. They're actually really talented public policy experts and really great at taking messages out to government and kind of positioning, working within industries and supporting industries and all that kind of thing. They're such talented people. And so they were interested in getting involved with us because of that piece about how we've got the opportunity to reach this great engaged community of music tech companies at all levels of their development, and that was kind of what interested them, and kind of having that access to insights and learning, seeing what's coming next in the industry and all that kind of thing. So yeah, and again, all of it, you know, people do things because they're self-interest. For instance, they learn something, find something out. But also a big part of trade associations is something that you might want to give in and give back to the association and the industry and support and provide support. And it's always a bit of a balance of both, really. You know, what a company can gain from it and what they can kind of give back and kind of build to the common good.
Fair. So let's go coming on to sort of the final, a couple of the final sections. But one thing I do want to just throw out to the audience, because it's pointless having you on and not telling people how they can come and join MTUK. You know, and I know you briefly touched on it there, but if someone wanted to join Music Technology UK, what would they do? Where would they go?
Great, yeah. Well, please do. You know, want to hear from everyone.
Plug.
Get in touch.
Absolutely.
Go to our website. So that's musictechnology.uk, or just drop me a line on LinkedIn. I'm Matt Cartmell. Get in touch. You know, if you're a music tech company, want you to join. If you're a big company, we want you to get us involved as an associate member. If you're an investor, we'd love you to come and meet our members, do talks. I told you about our Wednesday sessions. Come along, come down to home and have a chat with people. Tell them what you need. You know, if you're public policy people, if you're government, if you're one of these other institutions of power, you can get involved. And also, I haven't mentioned at all the fact that we've got about 15 universities that are involved.
Amazing.
As well. So we've got this
great,
academic membership program.
Wow.
And the great thing about that is if you're a university, you've got a bunch of students, you know, working, doing music courses, doing music tech courses, whatever it is. You can sign up for free. It's completely free to join for universities. And then all of the students and tutors and all that kind of thing can all come along to the events and join the events and attend and learn together. And we're looking to find ways to get our university partner more involved, in fact, and do more things together with them. So it's all about, again, being that hub for the ecosystem.
I love that. I'm really just reflecting back on some of the things you've said then. So you're doing a school initiative, you're working with universities, you've got incubators and obviously guidance and help for startups, and then obviously working with these really established firms, and then obviously then you've got the partners as well, like KPMG, who obviously might not necessarily be directly involved with the industry, but actually bring a lot to the table, let's be honest.
Yeah.
You really are sort of covering, and then everything in amongst that is from any walk of life in music tech. You really do have your. You don't like hard work, don't you, Matt?
We've got a bit of work to do. We've got a lot. We've got a lot we want to achieve, you know, and there's a lot to be done here. And I think I learned a lot from kind of my PRCA days. You know, I when I was working there, that we try to just do everything and be that single voice for the industry. So that's kind of what you've got to do a lot of stuff. And you've got to be, you know, you've got to be getting involved in lots of different things. And I think it's important. Be
is
active.
there any? Sorry.
Yeah, that's it.
Is there anything that you think is missing at this stage? And I appreciate you've mentioned about a couple of things you want to build and everything like that. But is there something that at the minute is kind of like, I don't know, being pushed down the road a little bit, or anything that you? I don't know, just anything that you would like to get to eventually that perhaps isn't being addressed at this stage?
That's a good question. I'm not entirely sure. What would we like to do that?
Or if you haven't noticed that you don't know, right?
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's true. As soon as I think of something, I try and do it. I think one of the things that we're going to launch fairly soon is more regular collaboration opportunities for members, and I think that we might do kind of regular monthly hackathon type experiences where maybe we get a couple of members to come together and do a little kind of like mini hackathon, and like just build that into our regular program. We do it occasionally at the moment, but building that into our regular program, you know, I think that would be quite exciting actually, to have more and more opportunities to have a couple of members to get together. And it could be a hypothetical idea. We want to launch a platform that's like this. We want to launch a new element of our service like this, and then work out how to do it. Or it could be something that's quite specific, or it could be quite general, you know.
This is quite peer-to-peer, which is beautiful.
It is, yeah. We're really all about that peer-to-peer thing. Yeah. We've got this WhatsApp community of 150 individuals from our membership, all kind of sharing ideas and getting things together. So, yeah, you know, peer-to-peer is a really big part of what we do.
Fantastic. Well, look, coming on to the last section then, Matt, and I want to kind of come back to you a little bit, if that's okay. And it's a question I really, really like, and it's about if in 100 years' time, someone was to look back and think to themselves, right, who was Matt Cartmell and what did he stand for? What would you want people to think of, know about you, or remember you for? Should I say?
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a good one, isn't it?
I like it.
That's a challenging one. Yeah. I keep going back to this idea of my triangle. So communications, music, technology. Yeah. That seems to. So I just hit that.
That's right. Yeah, you're fine.
Getting over animated. That seems to be my world basically. Yeah. And I think that, you know, I'd like to be thought of as a good communicator. Hopefully I am some of the time. And I've it's my passion for music that sort of drives me forward. And technology seems to have been that kind of enabler. And that kind of constant thing through my long and twisted career, which has kind of continued through and through.
Amazing. And well, unless there's anything else, I suppose, or maybe a question, I think we might have covered this earlier, but just want to touch base on it very, very quickly again before we go. New music tech company, anything they're in, and obviously I think I actually asked questions specifically to AI, but let's ask it a bit broader now. What advice would you give to someone who is looking to get into the world of music tech? Now, whether that is setting up on their own or whether it's a case of just wanting a career in it, but with an existing business, what would your advice to them be?
I think if you're in those first stages where you're learning about the industry and so on, talk to a lot of people. Yeah, I think that is the number one. So founders can often have that thing of, I've got a great idea. This is a great idea. This is a really good idea. And then they'll stick with that. Yeah. But they don't necessarily know if it's a good idea out there in the world. And they need to have communicate with people, talk to them, talk to people in the industry and know their stuff, and lots of different types of people in music, technology, investors. Talk to everyone, speak to everyone about it, and don't be scared of negative feedback. And it might be constructive criticism. That's the phrase I was looking for. Don't be scared of that. You might find that you can pivot to something even better, or it's great, or you might trash it entirely and come up with something much better. So I think that you've got to get out there and you've got to start having conversations.
Fair. And for the person that perhaps just loves the idea of music tech and wants to start a company, I appreciate you sort of started your own firm doing it. But if someone just wanted to get into the industry, do you have any sort of advice for them? Is there any up and coming companies you would watch out for and think would be exciting to work for?
Well, I think more general kind of advice is that it's an exciting and fun world, music contextually. It's full of very passionate people who love music, love technology, and it's a great kind of place for meeting cool, fun people. I would say that they're lovely. But when you're kind of looking for roles, check out the company. Look at the kind of what do they do. Look at how they kind of create their tech. Look at the kind of work that they do. How do they engage with their partners? And what's the kind of reputation of the company? And kind of make a value judgment on kind of whether that sounds like the right kind of place for you to work at. Does it fit with your values and the kind of things that you think are right? There's all sorts of interesting kind of fairly diverse elements to working at these companies around. Obviously, the AI issue. There's all sorts of different points of view on that. So it's really valuable to check out the way that business operates and make sure that it's the right place for you, I'd say.
Well, actually, this kind of made me think of a question that perhaps I should have asked earlier, but I'll ask you now. In regards to culture, and that is obviously as music technology UK grows, the concept of trying to keep a core culture obviously becomes more difficult. What are you doing to either embrace it or to fight it? What's your opinion or view there?
So, I think what we just tried to create from the start was this culture of openness, basically, so people could come along. And I think I mentioned it before, this way of coming in and actually being open about things, discuss things in a way which is constructive and bring something which towards the collective good. Find collaboration points and good kind of points of communication between people, and just creating that thing, making sure diversity of voice, so making sure everyone's got equal opportunity to kind of have their voice heard and all that kind of thing. I think these things are all really important. And as you get bigger, the challenge is greater about maintaining those kind of values. And I think that's the kind of thing we've got to keep hold of, is ensuring that we keep those values strong as we keep going forward.
Amazing. All right, coming on to unless there's anything else you want to touch base on or anything else you want to cover.
I can't think of anything, actually, Ben.
Then I've got one last question for you, mate. And that is, what's next for Matt? Obviously, I know we've already spoke about what you want to be, how you want to be remembered. We've spoke about what your goals are for MTUK, and obviously the voice you're being for music technology across the UK and Europe and everywhere else and growing. But you personally, what's next for you? What do you want to do?
Yeah, so I think I would have to say, first of all, to continue to grow Music Tech UK into the preeminent voice for music technology in the UK.
I've no doubt.
So I think that's something that is totally cool. But then, I think another interesting that really fascinates me at the moment is this idea about, and I'm going to go back to AI.
Please do, mate.
That side of things again. And I find it really interesting about, I'm learning a lot about AI myself personally and seeing what the opportunities are there in business in general. And I think, thinking about my experience of like creating trade associations and communities, I actually think there's a real opportunity there for AI to have a role in those kind of community building things and actually kind of bringing communities together, engaged, look at a trade association, essentially what it is, it's an engaged community. Yeah. So how can AI be used to kind of create more value within that community? How can it bring members together more? How can it kind of start to create those kind of links and all that kind of thing, which might not be obvious? Certain things, and create something which is a bit more dynamic. I'm kind of interested in this. I don't know quite where I'm going with it yet, but it kind of, I find it really interesting.
I suppose it also, once again, it could be, I know we've mentioned it a couple of points today, is this whole fan engagement as well, right?
Exactly.
Not necessarily just a community for music tech, but like just in general, just creating this ability to connect in a different way, to connect more rigorously or more consistently, or being able to take the same message but once again change the actual way that the message is presented automatically, so that the reader is reading in their own language, and I don't mean necessarily different language, but just the way they want to see it, whether it's because of their generation or their sex or their ethnicity or whatever. Exactly. But if they want to see it in that way, AI I'm sure could be an amazing thing. I've given you an idea there.
I think you're absolutely right. I think there is something in all of this. A lot of those kind of skills, that communication skills and marketing skills and all those kind of things, how can AI kind of bring those things on board and do that all-encompassing community building thing? And remember, all the old fan clubs back in the day. If you join the Oasis fan club or whatever it was, and how that old-fashioned idea of the fan club, how's that going to be updated to the 2020s, 2030s, and onwards? Basically, that's an exciting thought.
Well, it really is, because obviously, and I don't want to come onto social media because obviously that's just a rabbit hole that I'm not ready for today. But I look at the way that social media is, trying to get that engaged super fan. A lot of people talk about newsletters and this, but I'm sure, I've got no doubt AI can really create a new format to connect. And I know I mentioned about just obviously changing the way that people receive data or interpret it or perceive it, blah, 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 but actually just completely potentially changing the way that it comes across in the first place.
That's right.
I think there's a lot of scope there, and that's definitely a watch this space.
We're going to be in a very interesting, different place in 5-10 years' time, aren't we? It's a bit scary.
Do you have any predictions?
They always say don't give any predictions because you're setting yourself up for a fall. I just the obvious stuff, huge shifts in the way that information is shared between people, huge changes in the way data is being shared about people, that community thing, the way that consumers engage with, brands is going to change hugely, and that's going to be much more personalized, isn't it? And all that kind of thing. Yeah. I mean, I approach it with some trepidation, but also some excitement as well.
Absolutely, yeah. As we've said, right, as long as things are managed in the right way and honestly, I think there's a lot of exciting things that could happen. Yeah. And on that note, Matt, thank you very much for coming in. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, I really enjoyed chatting with you, Ben. That's great. Thank you.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Beats Learning. A big thanks to Matt for giving us a front row seat to the rise of music technology UK and for sharing how music and innovation are colliding to shape the future of the industry. If you found it at all valuable or liked what you heard today, hit like, subscribe and pass it on to someone building in music, tech or anywhere in between. Thanks for listening. I'm Ben Davenport and I'll see you next time on Beats Learning.